Okay, now we're going to talk about grammar, and we're going to go over pages 4.1 to 4.17. Actually, we're not going to do 4.16 and 4.17. That'll act as kind of a quiz that we'll do when we see each other again, just to make sure you understand pronoun agreement and the other grammar rule, which will be ambiguous pronouns. Pronouns are a big deal on the SAT. So pronouns are a big deal on the SAT. So we'll start with pronoun agreement. So clearly pronouns are a substitute for a noun. You want to make sure the pronoun agrees with what it's referring to. But before we talk about that, the reason why we use pronouns is avoid repetition. Like you see the sentence in the first block, Jack woke up in the morning, Jack then went for a run, afterward Jack ate breakfast and went to work. When work ended, Jack joined his buddies at a local eatery for some good times. Sounds repetitive. So you can say Jack woke up in the morning and went for a run, afterwards he ate breakfast, when work ended he joined his buddies. So I could substitute the word Jack with he. Or here's another one. The jury members were interviewed by the media and gave their individual opinions. You want to use the word there because you're talking about members, that's plural. So there would be a plural pronoun, that would make sense, and it's possessive. But then we have a problem. This is disagreement. Gustavo practices yoga every morning in order to get better at it. It is singular because yoga is also singular. If you said Gustavo practices his karate moves every morning in order to get better at them, because you're talking about karate moves, that's plural, then use them. So make sure you know that the pronoun agrees with whatever it's referring to. So let's look at some isolated practice here. Determine if the pronoun agrees with the word it is replacing. Be prepared to explain your reasoning. Okay, fingerprints will smudge all over both the computer monitor and refrigerator, so we better clean them. Not it, because you're referring to the monitor and a refrigerator, referring to two things. The run and track team always wins races because he has. Or she has, but remember, that's singular. The new and improved line detergent uses its. Even though they say new and improved, those are just adjectives. We're still talking about the detergent. It's got to be its. The team members widely celebrated their victory, but they. So talking about team members. That's plural. For the cyclists exploring Ireland's western cliffs, every road leading out of the town of Clifton offers. Every is actually singular. Same thing with each. So it's also true for each. So when you say Clifton offers its own set of wonders. So just make sure you know what we're talking about. If we're talking about something that's a single entity, like every road, make sure you use the word its. Another good example, you wouldn't say my high school and their students, you say my high school and its students, because you're talking about one school. So just make sure that if it's a single entity, use its, or something singular. If it's a plural entity, then of course use plural pronouns. So here's some practice. What might be a good idea is to pause the video. Of course, this requires a bit of diligence on your part. Pause the video, work on these problems, and then play the video and see if you get it right. Okay, so I trust you pause the video. Let's look at number one. We're talking about plastic. That's singular. That's got to be its. So that's got to be A. And typically you'll see these pronoun errors show up in the identifying error questions. They occasionally can show up in improving sentences, but you don't see any here. That the system has flaws is beyond dispute, but talking about one system, it's got to be its again. You know, B is cool, nothing wrong with saying that. D is cool. The refusal of management to rise its. Now sure, I'm sure there's more than one person in the management, but management's still one thing. That's a single entity. It's a singular noun. You gotta say its. While both Disaster rescue workers and news reporters may face physical danger. The latter may control. Well, you're talking about news reporters. When you're talking about the latter, that's the most recent thing. News reporters is plural. Control their exposure risk. And this one's a bit weird. It's under pronoun agreement. It's more pronoun shift. If you use word one, you need to use word one again. You gotta be consistent with your pronouns too. And there's cool because you're talking about people and observe. One must learn about its history and observe its people going about their ordinary activities. Because in this case, the there is referring to people. So the D is cool. A is cool because you have the subject-verb agreement. C is fine, but B is a problem. Ambiguous pronouns. When you hear the word ambiguous, ambiguous means unclear. So, must be obvious who or what the pronoun is referring to. So if we look at this example, the United States entered a warm relations with China after its compliance with recent weapons agreements. So it's cool you're saying it's referring to one country. The problem is, which country? Who's complying? Is China complying? The United States are complying? So, if you want to get kind of political, or if you're biased and you're a Republican living in this country, you probably would say we're in the right and China's in the wrong. But sorry if you're Republican, I didn't mean to offend you. But yeah, we don't know which country. So, see how C makes more sense after China's compliance, because then we're clear that we're referring to China. Here's some isolated practice. Ethel told Lucy our pie was wonderful. So this has to be more specific. Whose pie is it? And you can actually say it either way. You could say Ethel told Lucy that Lucy's pie was wonderful. Ethel told Lucy that her own pie or Ethel's pie was wonderful. Because it's not quite sure is Ethel talking about her own pie or the pie that Lucy made. So is Ethel being kind of arrogant or being nice? Because if she's being arrogant, she'd say her own pie is great. If she's being nice, she would tell the other person, you made a great pie. The files arranged by temporary workers were out of order, so we sent them. That's ambiguous. Who are sending back? Files or the workers? Not quite clear. So obviously that'd be an error. And it could be fixed, either way, but just realize it's an error. Since they spent a great deal of money on food, lodging, and trinkets, tourists proved to be a great boon. Actually, that's fine, because it's pretty obvious that tourists and they agree with each other. So I'd say that one's okay. The Smiths made wonderful cakes, and we were glad we saw them. So in this case, that's a problem. Because it's them referring to the Smiths or the cakes. That's not quite clear. However, once Nora and Alita go to live with their husbands, they have to convert to the ways. So who's they? Nora and Alita? Or the husbands? So that's also ambiguous. So here are 5 problems that deal with ambiguous pronouns. Again, pause the video, then play the video, and see if you get them right. Okay, so I trust you pause the video. Let's look at number 1. These are obviously problems. So in this case, we see it in improving sentence question. So C would make the most sense because it's clear. Larry's pleased to hear that Daniel could fix his car. Well, who had wrecked it? Larry or Daniel? We don't know. So it's D. For 3, well, who needed the book, the father or John? It's not quite clear who's going on the plane ride. So we go B, because that's unclear. Well, B is okay, because obviously it's pretty obvious we're talking about the Gray's return from the trip. But D is not okay, because when the Grays haven't arrived yet, or when the Shells haven't arrived yet. So that's a bit unclear. And then for number 5. So who is they? It's not quite clear. You know, it could be the heroes, villains, or can even refer to the films. So looking at all the choices, B solves the same problem as the original. D would actually be a run-on sentence, so I'll go E. I admire modern films that feature anti-heroes alongside villains because these stories portray mankind as flawed instead of perfectly normal. So it makes them more clear. So be sure your pronoun is clear as to what it's referring to, as I mentioned. And it must be obvious who or what the pronoun is referring to. It's got to be clear, because ambiguous does mean unclear. And so these problems here we'll do as a little quiz when I see you again. And we are all set for this video. Alright, see you there. Bye.